everyone, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities presents the Hometown Haunts podcast. I am your host, Kat Klockow. Along with me is Christina Wald and Jen Kohler, and we're back from our spring break. Hope everyone is having a good day. I hope you had lunch, and I hope you're feeling good. You can follow us on social media at Sin Cabinet Curio on Twitter, at Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram, and you can send us your own hometown haunts, creepy cryptids, or spooky urban legends to hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com. Yes, that is a live email that I check daily, and man, I miss you all. Please send me all of your stories. I love reading them. I need something to do while drinking my coffee in the morning. Anytime's a good time for spooky time. You can find us on iTunes. Yes. And we're also an official podcast on, well, iTunes and YouTube. So, hi, you're listening to us. Thank you for finding us. Please share us with your friends so that other spooky lovers just like you can listen to the weird history of Cincinnati and chat with us. And, of course, send us your spooky stories to hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com. So, ladies, there was a lot that happened in the past week. One of them I will get into a rage if we talk about for a long time. I do want everyone to know that we very much support the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. And I am extremely angry at the shooting that happened in Atlanta. It's very obvious that it is a racial hate crime, and it is very perverted in my words. I cannot express how angry I was when I heard that. I don't care what the women did. It was a loss of life, and I can't believe he did that. Christina, Jen, input before I explode.
100% agree with you. No one deserves to be shot and killed just for who they are.
No.
Well,
Again, except for pedophiles.
Yeah, that's just bad all around.
But yeah, I went to the they had a gathering at the Freedom Center in downtown Cincinnati, and a lot of people were telling their stories, and it kind of showed you how ignorant you were to history. In the United States, for example, the railroads being built by Chinese immigrants. I mean, I knew that, and a lot of the violence towards that, but some of the more recent things I didn't even know about. I kind of remember them peripherally, like for example, in Detroit, in the 80s, that was kind of when first you started seeing a lot of Japanese cars coming to this country, and Detroit was, a lot of workers were being laid off, not because of that, but because of other reasons. Corporations are always, a lot of the problems in the 80s that had to do with, cars and why they were being made here had nothing to do with the competition in Japan. But anyway, a long story short, a Chinese man was beaten up and killed in Detroit. And the topic was so hot in Detroit that they had the trial in Cincinnati, and the father and son who beat him up actually got off. They didn't get they got, I think, 3 years probation. And the judge said that, they weren't the type of people that should go to jail. And it was just stuff like that was pretty horrendous. Yeah. I mean, it was horrible stuff. And that was a story that I never knew what the resolution. I kind of peripherally remember the incident, but I don't remember, exactly the details. Probably when I was, I probably wasn't paying a ton of attention to the news at that point, as a teenager.
Yeah.
But there's always been, a lot of issues. And so, I think that it's something we should all be sensitive to, and see how, there's a lot of, again, stereotypes and stuff like that a lot of people don't realize that they're putting on other people.
Oh yeah, the microaggressions are egregious,
that's the word,
and extremely common. So, Jen, did you have anything to say before I just go into a soapbox or on a soapbox?
You know, ever since I work for the Cincinnati Inquirer, so, and I have a love-hate relationship with the news. Like, I never, growing up, news was not an important thing in my household. It was never something I paid attention to until I started working at the Inquirer. And then I got laid off and I was angry at that. So I just kind of shut down on the news front. And I'm still kind of there because now such horrendous things are happening that I absorb it. And it just makes me angry and sad. And then I can't function. So in a lot of ways, I just shut it out because I can't emotionally take it. But, you know, with my mom being Buddhist when I was a child, I grew up around a lot of Japanese people. And I mean, people from all over the world, actually. And I love them all. They always had Pocky and always had Japanese candy to give me. You don't know how
Always
excited I
Pocky.
was when I found Pocky at Kroger. And because it just brought back all, like, going to meetings and just sitting with them and just, I don't know. Please stop killing people. Just stop shooting people.
Just should stop, because then you got the King Supers incident and last week, and I was just like, can we just not do this? Let's not repeat that bit. But which is also a huge tragedy all upon itself. But with the murders that happened in Atlanta, the Asian American community, for me personally, are my adoptive family, because I don't have a large extended family. They've been my adoptive family for over 20 years now. So when I see people get shot for the most inane reasons, and I see people in my community get microaggressions put about them, and it's just the way people phrase things, it is extremely hurtful. And I know I've yelled at more than one person for my friends. I've seen them yell at people too. They don't need to stay silent. I don't need to be here to always defend them. But it's just angry just seeing this happen to them, and also having to learn how to just roll with it and just to enjoy the rest of your night. You have to just go whatever and walk on. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. So, it was the murder of Vincent Chin. That was 1982. That's what Christina was citing. I could remember his last name, but not his first name. And
thanks for looking that up.
No problem. I was just like, Chin. What is his first name? I could not remember. And he was a Chinese American. And Asian American history is American history, just like African American history is American history. We should all be learning about this. We should be learning about the detention centers that Japanese Americans were thrown into. One of my mom's friends was actually born in one in Hawaii. And she taught me about that when I was rather young. And so I was an odd one out in Indiana who knew about these centers before we even touched the one paragraph we had in our history book about it.
And during the war, right?
In high school. And it was really late in high school.
Same.
And we do want to share the stopaapihate.org. Please contribute and help act upon all of these microaggressions. This is by no means pushing aside the NAACP and all of that, but also bringing to the spotlight the Stop AAPI Hate, so that we can really just stop all this freaking nonsense. Just stop it. Just stop it. Respect everyone.
Support your local community too. Like, go to there's a lot of really great Asian grocery stores in town. Cam is like my home grocery store. Yeah. And there's a really nice Vietnamese market at Finley Market. And your favorite restaurants, be sure to patronize them too, and keep their businesses. A lot of restaurants particularly have been hit hard by COVID, so patronize them. Patronize even art shows about it. And I'll try to find links. I'm not sure if this is up right now. I know one of my friends spoke at the rally, Emily, and she teaches at Art Academy, and she's been doing a lot of artwork about the internment camps and that sort of thing. Helping people never forget. And I think there is something currently going on. Let me see if I can find a link for that in the show.
I don't know.
Even beyond violence, you might, everybody is probably guilty of doing some sort of minor microaggression and just
Correct.
not realizing it.
And bias also happens as well.
Yeah. And so just think about like some of that stuff. Everybody should, kind of examine what it is you're saying. And, there's certain language people use that, and it you've been raised with it without necessarily realizing it. So you should be examining, what you're saying and how it might be hurting other people.
Yeah. So just know that we support you. We're equally as angry about it happening as you are, and very active in trying to prevent future tragedies like this occurring again.
Yes. And I just want to mention George Takei.
Yes, George Takei was also born in a internment camp.
Was he born in it, or was he just taken to it as a little boy? I can't remember.
I think he was taken.
You're right. He was taken. Sorry.
But what I love
about it, segueing back to comics, there is a graphic novel about it you can get.
Yes,
that recently came out.
Say what I love about him is that he uses his fame to talk about the internment camp so that we never forget. So I think every interview he mentions it. And I just think that's amazing because that's living history, and it's a scar that never goes away. Ever.
He was also in a play about it that they showed in those what do they call those Fathom events that I went to see, that was really sad.
Yeah.
So George Takei's book is They Called Us Enemy, and it's available at your local booksellers. You can order it online as well. It's on Kindle and Comixology for those who use it. And it has a 5 out of 5 star. It's #1 bestseller on Amazon, and it has 2,055 ratings. So that is a very good book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the other writer or the artist, I think, is Justin Eisinger, who is the artist.
Excellent. So we've segued into comics. So
yes. So on that note, we have a new lineup for the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities Volume 2. Yay. And it's a really exciting. It's a good group of people. I'm excited. I've been looking through everyone's thumbnails and their layouts and their stories and their scripts because I'm the editor. And shall I share who's doing what, Christina?
Please do.
All right. So our very own Christina Wald has teamed up with Jeff Suess. Yeah, Cease. Jeff Cease. Thank you.
Welcome.
And covering the Price Hill Medium, who there's your Magic 8 Ball.
Talk about the Magic 8 Ball too.
Yes, she was the inspiration for the Magic 8 Ball. Her son helped invent it. And Christina and Jeff have written a great piece about that. And I'm excited. It's a lot. It's fun because you cover that nice Edwardian transition time period, and you also have Sir Arthur Conan Doyle in your story.
Came to Cincinnati. So. I mean, everybody should know.
Yeah, he came to Cincinnati.
So
it's like, hey, we were famous once as a city. Famous people came here on purpose. Oh, this is a dig to my adoptive hometown. Anyway, so Kevin Necessary, Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist, is writing about the ghost at the Chillicothe Gazette that he had a personal experience with.
Tom Miller. It's a great set of sketches too. I think. It's
that's a really story. Yeah, and it is a haunting story. He does so well with it too.
I thought so.
I was just like, dang it, man! How are you this good with your layouts? Like mine look like a hot mess, and his were like already ready to go. And I'm like, I could just print this. It'd be fine.
Exactly.
Him and Steve did a really, really good job. So Tom Miller, who did the cover of the first issue, is doing the Screaming Bridge at Maud Hughes Road, which is a very popular urban legend around here. And that is your classic crybaby bridge with a very terrible train derailment that made it haunted. So
great to have an urban legend in this lineup.
I am happy that he chose to do this one. He has some personal connection to the bridge, which is even better. And yeah, I love having one urban legend at least in each story. So last year, Christina did Satan's Hollow, and this year, Tom is doing Maud Hughes Road. And then we have a new pair, INKY and I'm going to mess up her name. Is it Aziza?
Yes.
I've been practicing with the Crosswick snake. When I mess up people's names, I practice them until I get them right. Because I don't want to make them sad. Anyway, INKY and Aziza are doing the Crosswick snake, which is a fun cryptid that we dug up with the help of our friend James Willis, who we had on the show for episode 10. And it is words fail me with how crazy this little encounter is. It's just like the mermaids of the Ohio River, where they were seen once and then you really never heard about them again. But they were a local legend, a hyper local legend in just this tiny town in Warren County, Ohio. So INKY and Aziza are doing that. And then along with that is Steve, I'm going to mess up his last name too. Stegelin?
We'll have to when we interview him, we'll have to have him pronounce his name.
Yeah, so just like Klockow, I'm gonna go Stegelin. So Steve, please correct me because I know I'm wrong. And he is doing Cryptids Forever, which is a wonderful bring together at a self-help group of Ohio cryptids, and he's got everyone in it. And his was another one where his original pencils could have just been published as is. They were so good, and it so peppy, as well as INKY and Aziza's. Both of those stories, I think. I'm sorry, Christina. Those two or those three all have the strongest stories so far in this issue. They're so poppy. There's a lot happening. They're really well done. And they're all new artists too. Artists and writers to our project. And then last and least is myself. And I'm doing the Ghosts of the Sorg based off of my personal experience running into a ghost of a flapper there in the commercial building, and also highlighting the other well-known ghosts of the Sorg Opera House in Middletown, Ohio. And my story was not nearly as snappy. I'm working on it.
I think all the stories are snappy. I think it's a good collection of, I think we've got a lot of really strong content in this issue.
Yeah. Like Kevin's is really good for a biographical comic. And then I looked at mine afterwards and I'm like, oh, there's things that I can do to improve this. So
because mine's kind of a historical lesson. So like each one kind of does something different. Mine's more of a historical thing about something that a lot of people don't probably know about Cincinnati. It's so exciting that this is the origin of the Magic 8-Ball, that, we had a famous medium. A lot of people don't know that. As a matter of fact, her house was bulldozed. Her house isn't there anymore. I was able to find some pictures of it. I'm taking some liberties with some of the stuff because you just have to find probably someone that lived on that street that might have pictures of it.
Yeah.
Just, not that I think anyone's probably going to knock us that much for accuracy. We've got it pretty close. As a matter of fact, there's a Facebook group called Old Photos of Cincinnati. I was asking on there if anyone had pictures of old Price Hill, and I am going to actually contact the Price Hill Historical Society before I do final artwork and see if anyone, because like the best way to find stuff like that would be people that lived on that street, family photos and stuff. So somebody has to have pictures of it somewhere. It's just not in the pantheon of Cincinnati history. That terrible picture of her, and she's buried in Spring Grove, and that's about all you have.
I think. Sorry.
No
You're going
worries.
The museum center is really good about their research center, but you got to give them time because they have phenomenal photographic archives.
Oh, I should look for that. Maybe somebody has a picture of stuff on that street.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
When I did a tour of it years ago through work, they had photos of someone that was documenting street by street for something. So who knows what they've got? You never know.
Yeah. The thing is time period, because I want a picture of it like in the 20s.
Yeah,
would be ideal. Even the 30s would be nice. What I have is pictures of it right before it was knocked down, and probably pictures from like the 2000s. Like,
okay,
we think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's probably a porch on it at one point, but it was taken off because the way that you look at the house, it looks like there was some sort of other structure on it that probably got wonky, and they probably took it off at some point. Like, but you look at houses kind of in that neighborhood.
So what I was going to suggest is that you contact Camp Chesterfield in Indiana. They are the spiritualist center or the spiritualist movement in Indiana, and they've been around since 1891. I just had to look up their address and everything. And they may, if Lauren Pruden was a part of the spiritualist movement, they probably have some archives about her stuff too.
They do have an entry about her, but no pictures of her house. But that doesn't mean they don't have them.
Yeah, I don't know what they have actually at the.
Yeah, they might have something more substantial that they haven't scanned in. I mean, why would people care about that unless you were doing a comic? I mean, that's the thing. Whenever you have to do artwork that involves some sort of biographical component, that's one of the hardest things is finding pictures of stuff the way it was. I illustrated a biography of Annie Jump Cannon, and when I was illustrating that book, I mean, all of her stuff was at Harvard, and so I had to actually contact the librarian there, and even then, like, you have to ask, what color were things. Like, there's a lot of stuff when you're illustrating something in color that you don't think about, like when you're writing about someone. What color was this person's eyes? What did the interior of their house look like? What did this look like? I mean, a lot of times you have to make educated guesses because that stuff's not around anymore.
Yeah, it's like when you're trying to describe what the dinosaurs looked like.
Exactly. And now
some have feathers. Who would have guessed? Yeah, they could have all had feathers.
Big Bird was very accurate for a dinosaur look.
Oh man, I'm not going to look at Sesame Street the same way again now.
How far back, how the auditor websites have pictures of your house back and back and back? How far back do they go? Like, would they have historical photos of an address?
Somebody found me a older picture on the auditor site. Okay. I think that's something, again, you might have to go to the office. Like, they're not going to scan in stuff that old and find out where they have that stuff archived. I think it exists. It's just finding, where it is at that time period.
And then hoping it was properly stored.
Well, there is that. One hopes with all of the digital recording of stuff that some things will be easier to find. But there's also that dilemma. What if something takes out those servers?
Yep.
There is a argument for redundancy and archival things.
So I've been doing that the past year with all my personal stuff.
Oh, very smart.
And I have a redundant server, 8 terabytes, and I filled it already.
Wow.
That's so easy to do. I've got a 32 terabyte array drive and it's getting full.
And then to upgrade it is super expensive. But Amazon Photos has this, if you're a Prime member, you can upload as many photos as you want for free. So to put all my eggs in that basket, it's just like,
well, making sure you always make sure you have more than one storage system, because this happened a couple of years ago. There was a website that a lot of artists were using that it was like a computer graphics, like CGI website, and all these artists would do artwork and save it to the cloud. And the site was owned by two people that were, I want to say they were in like either Sweden or Denmark or something, and they decided they didn't want to continue with the site anymore, and all the people that had art on the site suddenly lost it, like they took it off, they took it offline. I think they did eventually let people have access to get their stuff, but it's a warning to make sure you back up your work in more than one place.
Although my sister tells me she's going to delete all my stuff when I die, so what's the point?
Wow.
Yeah, she's mean.
She's
mean.
That is very cold.
But anyway, so we segued into storage, but the next issue of the comic should be really exciting, and stay tuned, because we'll be revealing the cover process too in the next month or so. We should be getting sketches for that soon and showing that off. I can't wait to see the whole book come together.
Yes, I'm very excited about it. It will be. And there's a good chance that we may have a Cincinnati Comic Expo, so you may see some stuff there.
That would be very exciting.
Yeah.
I just heard that San Diego Comic-Con is going to be over Thanksgiving.
Oh. Well, that's good.
So it's like 5 people will be there. Everybody that doesn't have family commitments is going to be.
Maybe. I mean, why not? That sounds preferable to my family. So anyway, weird stuff we saw this week, Christina.
I thought I saw this on Huffington Post, and I just thought it was really interesting. It was this, and we'll have a link in the show notes. This guy was actually reenacting, those fun reenactments you see on those shows. He was actually at a haunted house reenacting this guy, and it was really creepy, and they were actually seeing paranormal stuff happening. And it sounded like the show didn't have the paranormal activity that they experienced just making the show, which was, I wondered how often stuff like this happens, because like they saw faces and he felt some very destructive presences. Does that ever happen where you're trying to get something, but like what you get that you could show to other people is not what you've experienced? It's hard.
Yes, that happens every time. It feels like most, and I'm pretty sure that we talked about that with Amy and Amanda. What you personally experience at a location is vastly different than the terrible audio that you've managed to record at the location. This is why the paranormal tends to be something that has to be experienced and less of a easily scientific process. This is our big roadblock with proving it, basically, is that it makes for great stories, it makes for great experiences, but being able to recreate them in a lab is almost impossible. I will say this is going to be secondhand knowledge, so I'm just passing off somebody else's story. When I was the co-host of the Paranormal View, my fellow co-host is Jeffrey Gould. Hey, Jeff. I need to make some Doctor Who reference sometime during this episode for him. But he works in Hollywood as a actor in backgrounds and in a lot of horror movies. And we would have guests on that were like either directors or producers or fellow co-stars with him in the movies. And they would just talk about all the paranormal activity that they would happen on set at these, because it'd be really cheap to be able to rent out, oh my gosh, what was it in Los Angeles? It used to be one of their oldest sane asylums or tuberculosis sanatorium. It has since been torn down. It's the same with Central State in Indianapolis. It has been torn down, but it used to be used a lot for movie shoots or music videos, things like that. And people would experience stuff and they would think it'd be like a background person working on some type of practical effect, and it turned out to be no one on the production staff at all. Seeing small children walking through the rooms, it's seeing faces in mirrors, seeing hands up on shower curtains or abandoned curtains in patient rooms, feet, hearing phantom coughs, like cold spots, all sorts of stuff. Waverly Hills also has this reputation, and so does Mansfield Reformatory, because a lot of music videos get made there. I mean, there's a jail. It's not a jail. There's a cell there that is painted completely gold for somebody's music video back in the day. And yeah, there's stuff that happens in the background of all these, and it screws up their audio like mad.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it can. You'll hear
And-
voices, like disembodied voices on their audio tracks and all that.
And stuff like this, like you said, it's not like it's kind of subtle. It's not in your face, especially because
Right.
we're conditioned to watch, like, say, horror films and stuff where everything's
Yeah.
overhyped and stuff, when it's much more subtle.
The paranormal is extremely mundane.
Yeah, I mean, but people have to read this article. This guy, so he calls Central Casting and gets to do this reenactment, and it's one of these houses where there's been lots of deaths, and they found all these bodies. And I love this part where he says, "I didn't know much about my role or what I'd be doing. I'd only been told I'd be playing a menacing looking spirit for the reenactment segments. I hadn't received a script ahead of time because I didn't have any lines to memorize, and I was told that my blocking would be explained to me on set. I didn't even know which spirit I was going to be playing, but when I returned to the tent, the homeowner saw my fedora and instantly knew. 'Oh, you're playing him.' 'Him?' I reluctantly asked. They told me about the spirit of the man who supposedly occupies the top floor of the house. They claimed he was by far the darkest spirit that resided in the house, and they believed him to be the one who attacked the priest on the stairs. He also had allegedly attacked another visitor at the house by throwing a heavy can of food at his head. Great, I was playing the man who turned out to be the most evil spirit in the house, and on his own turf, no less. After the homeowners revealed this information to me, the rest of the cast and crew came outside for lunch. As we were eating, something caught my eye on the second story of the house. I suddenly noticed a curtain in a window began to move, as if someone was slowly peeling it back. I immediately thought it was unusual because, as far as I knew, no one was upstairs, and it was a particularly still summer day. I continued to watch intently as the curtain when a crew member noticed my gaze. She asked if there was anyone up there, and the director confirmed that everyone was outside. Someone asked if a fan might be running in that room due to the silence that's required to filming. All of the fans in the home had been shut off. One of the homeowners noted that was probably him. And before anyone could say another word, the curtain pulled back once again, and a ghoulish face stared directly at us. "There he is," she said matter-of-factly. She had lived in the home most of her life, so she claimed to have grown up with that sort of activity. To her, it was almost commonplace. I, on the other hand, was fully trembling at this point. So
The poor guy.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I felt really bad. What's his name? The guy, I'm scrolling back to see his name. Alex Aronson. Yeah, that would be kind of, he was kind of dropped into this situation.
Oh man.
I know.
He
And the
should have
people-
asked the ghost for tips.
I know. I don't know if I don't
That's a
think
good
that he
idea.
wanted to encourage him.
Contact.
But that would be creepy, eating lunch and seeing like a curtain go back and see a ghoulish face. I mean, for you, Kat, who's experienced with this, you probably would have been like, "Oh, another ghoulish face." But I think
Yeah, I have
Jen
to
and I
say
would
that
be
is
like, "Oh my god."
I am happy to report that is something that has not happened to me yet.
No ghoulish
Good.
faces.
No
Good,
ghoulish
good.
faces popping out of windows. Yeah, that's a new one. The closest I ever got was seeing a shadow person walking by a window when I was outside during an investigation.
Mhm.
But actually that happened twice, but no faces right up to a window pulling anything back. So I wouldn't be scared. I'd be immediately wondering how I can get in there and up there real quick to be able to take like photos or video or audio, or
Mhm.
wondering if anybody left anything on. That's why a lot of times investigators, if we're doing a place, will actually leave the electronics going and note where we left them. We'll actually mark them with carpenter's tape, so that, and then just leave. We'll actually completely exit the building, because there's many times where if spirits know we're investigating them and we've been there enough times they recognize us, they start getting chatty and they start moving things. And so yeah, that sounds like an interesting place to go. I would love to investigate it.
Does it say on here where it is? It just says it's on one of those like unsolved mysteries kind of shows, but I don't think it
Uh-huh.
actually says. Perhaps since it's Huffington Post, they thought it wasn't a good idea to say where it was.
That's probably true.
Probably.
It's kind of like the Conjuring House in Rhode Island. For a
Uh-huh.
really long time, no one knew exactly where it was,
Mm-hmm.
just for the privacy of the owners. And I think now a pair of actual paranormal investigators own it. So they're just like, this is the address. Everyone visit. So,
Well, yes, and when you've turned it into a business, sort of.
yeah.
And that's different from the Amityville house.
Yeah,
Or is it
Amityville,
the
they
same
didn't.
house?
It's in Long
That's
Island.
different than that. That's a different place. Ed and Lorraine
Okay.
Warren worked on both cases.
Mm-hmm.
But so the Amityville's on Amityville, Long Island, New York, and then the Conjuring House is in Rhode Island. I don't remember exactly where. I want to say Cumberland. So that's almost to the Massachusetts border.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
and
whenever I'm in
those
Long
of us, those listeners who are outside the United States, Long Island, New York, and Rhode Island, United States, two separate places.
fairly close.
Separate
but
places, very close. They share a sound, a little body of water, like a
we're probably
bay,
like a couple hours
and
train
Block
ride from each
Island.
other.
But they're two different locations. So I used to live in
Mhm.
Rhode Island. I love it a lot.
Aw.
Uh-uh.
I always, whenever we pass the Amityville exit in Long Island, I always think of Amityville Horror. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That everyone does. And just recently, DeFeo died.
Yes, that was my other weird thing I had thought about doing.
Yeah.
Was talking about how that he recently passed away.
Yeah.
We'll
and
talk
he
about
passed
that
away.
perhaps more in depth later.
Yeah.
But so
Yeah.
that's my weird thing. I thought it was really interesting. But this week is very weird because you've got your Cincinnati special deliveries. So
Yeah, this
you
is
wanna kinda
Cincinnati
give us the
special deliveries. Yeah, we so yeah, this is just a little piece of weird history. This week's episode is just everywhere. We start with anger, we slide into comics, and now we go into weird history. So you're just feeling all the emotions this week with all the various stories. So come around, everyone, as I tell you the wonderful story of Cincinnati's special deliveries, or the parcel post children of the United States in the early 20th century. And we do source from the Postal Museum and the Smithsonian. Also, thanks to the Legal Eagle YouTube channel. Thanks, Devin, for letting me know about the story to begin with in one of his wonderful YouTube videos. Like, he didn't personally talk to me or anything. I don't know this man, but I am a fan of his channel. We watch the shows all the time. And he mentioned Batavia, Ohio, and my ears went, hello, that's Cincinnati. So, so this is just a quick weird history. So Batavia, Ohio, it's to the east of Cincinnati. It's in Claremont County, Ohio. And it was the first place where the phenomena of mailing babies via United States parcel post was first practiced in, well, you guessed it, the United States. The first child was mailed, and also was male, was 10-month-old James Beagle. And he was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Jesse Beagle of Glen Est, Ohio, which is a small farming community, or was at the time.
Glen
The
Estee.
boy, Glen Estee. Thank you, Glen Estee. See, I mess up names. Thank you for correcting me. Now I know. Anyway, the boy was mailed January 15th, 1913, to his grandmother, Miss Louise Beagle, who lived just a mile away from them, using the rural free delivery, which cost a 15-cent stamp, and he was insured for $50, which was a lot for that time. And I'm glad the parents insured him. The delivery man's name was Vernon Little. So why did the Beagles mail their son? Why didn't they just take a horse and travel that mile? I actually don't know. They never actually go into detail in any of the news stories that we have. But the U.S. Postal Service started delivering goods over 4 pounds on January 1st, 1913. Although private large parcel delivery services did exist in the United States in the 19th century, the USPS allowing for large parcel services suddenly gave the rural communities, such as Glen Est, the ability to get goods delivered to them, especially
Glen
large.
Estee.
Glen Estee.
My
Glen
sister
Estee.
went to high school there.
Oh, that's why you know. Okay, Glen Estee. Kind of like Estes Park, but not quite. Anyway, Estes Park, Colorado, where the Stanley Hotel is. This is how I'm going to try to remember it. My pneumatic device is a haunted location. Anyway, so also postmen of these rural areas were really well known to everyone that lived there. They were trusted people. So this is why the Beagle family could trust that their infant son would be safely delivered 1 mile away at grandma's house by Vernon Little, because they knew him and they knew Vernon probably would not drop poor James in the middle of winter. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at this. Yeah. Also, people would, when the over 4 pound limit was not restricted anymore, people liked to test this by sending odd things in the mail. My favorite thing they would do is send snakes through the parcel post. Oh, Jen, the face you were making. They also would send bricks or eggs, hopefully not together, because it just sounds like a mess. And in 1918, chickens and chicks were allowed to be sent through parcel post, and leading to the story with little May, who I'll get to in a minute, where they said that she was sent via like the chicken amount, like chicken rate. But anyway, I'll get back to that in a minute. So between 1913 and 1915, 7 children were mailed through the parcel post, according to the National Postal Museum, which is actually a lot of kids. And the National Postal Museum actually has all the different situations and incidents of children being mailed. I'm focusing really just on Cincinnati right now. James also wasn't the only child in the region to be mailed via parcel post. In 1918, Cincinnati Post boy reporter Freddie Pritz, then 13, mailed himself from Cincinnati to Versailles, Indiana. It cost him 40. It cost actually the Cincinnati Post 74 cents plus 4 cents for the war tax to mail Freddie. And he wrote about his experience in one of the September 18th, 1918 edition of the Cincinnati Post. And there he also makes the joke of how he went the rooster rate for going to Versailles, Indiana, or Versailles, if you want to pronounce it correctly. We're going with right pronunciations here. Before the USPS parcel post was, sorry, let me try that again. Before the USPS opened to parcel post for over 4 pounds, we have the story of Marie Ritter, aka the Tagged Girl, who was shipped from Stuttgart, Germany to Cincinnati, Ohio via Antwerp, Belgium. So, wow, she had a long way to go. At 15 years old, Marie did not know any English, but it's believed she did know German, and she was navigating the American and European train and shipment routes was rather difficult. So her family prepaid for her from Germany to be sent to Cincinnati to her sister. Marie's trip took 11 days, and she carried absolutely no luggage, and nor did she chat with anybody else on the trip. She made it to Cincinnati on November 28th, 1901, and that edition of the Cincinnati Post also wrote about her trip. So according to historian Greg Hand, who writes for Cincinnati Magazine, Marie had immigrated to the United States to join her sister Frida, who worked at the Palace Hotel. Hand mentions that in the 1910 census records, Marie was recorded working as a servant for a family in Walnut Hills. Afterwards, her records go dark, and we actually don't know what happened to poor Marie Ritter after that. And thank you, Jen, for also finding the original. She found this original Cincinnati Post article, and I'm hoping that while I'm reading this, Christina is showing you the adorable little illustration of Marie Ritter that they created with all of her little tags that were pinned to her coat. So although the first male child was in the Cincinnati region. The most famous parcel post child was 6-year-old May Pistorov. Oh, Piersdorf. Oh, Jen, yeah. Okay. Piersdorf. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take that again. Although the first male child was in the Cincinnati region, the most famous parcel post child was 6-year-old May Piersdorf of Idaho. On February 19th, 1914, May's parents sent her 73 miles from their home in Grangeville, Idaho, to her parents via parcel post. Her postage was 53 cents. The stamps were tucked into her pocket. However, she was escorted the entire way by a family member who worked on the rail mail trains. Which brings me to how these kids were being delivered from one place to another. So if it was a short distance, like we had with James, they would basically ride in the carriage or on the horse or even just be carried by the postal worker. But if they were going further, they were riding the trains, the mail trains, as a passenger. And I know I dug up a few examples of what a mail train looked like at the turn of the 20th century. And they were just essentially freight trains with really no passenger seating, but these kids would just be put into one of these freight cars and sit there and I guess watch the scenery roll by and hope that the snakes don't bite them that are in the box with them. So, yeah. So, the Postmaster General issued directions in 1914 to the nation's postmasters that humans were not to... Sorry, I got something in my eye. Let me take that again. The Postmaster General issued directions in 1914 to the nation's postmasters that humans were to be barred from being mailed. This sounds like a wise decision. However, children were still mailed at the discretion of each local postmaster, meaning that they were riding the USPS mail trains as passengers in some incidents. Most of these incidents, though, after the 1914 directions were done locally, so these kids were not really traveling that far. The Cincinnati postmaster investigated the case of 3-year-old Maud Smith as she was mailed from her grandmother's home to her parents' home in Jackson, Kentucky. The postal officers from Cincinnati questioned why the local Coney, Kentucky postmaster let the trip occur, violating the postal rules. Maud Smith was the last child known to be mailed via parcel post. By the late 1910s, except for publicity stunts like Freddie Prinze, kids were no longer mailed, and it just faded away into weird history. And that is the story of the parcel post children, aka Cincinnati Special Deliveries. Oh, Jen is dying of laughter.
So many unanswered questions.
So many unanswered questions. Oh, Jen, are you okay?
Yes, this is just hilarious. Cincinnati is known for the weirdest things.
I know, that's why I love this podcast. I get to learn all of it.
Well,
and it started and ended here.
I know. I did not expect that. That was a twist.
People in Cincinnati are just very efficient. You know why?
I would say goofy.
But this Marie Ritter story, she was traveling for 11 days with no luggage. That sounds miserable. And didn't talk to anyone. She didn't talk to anyone. I mean, she did have money to buy food. She was on a boat. I assume there were, where do you go to the bathroom? Like, yeah, how do you get food? I'm like, this seems very...
Sounds lonely, really.
Weird.
It does.
But it also kind of sounds like me in an airport. So.
But it sounds like she was taken care of. Like, they kept an eye out for her.
Yeah.
No luggage? You were in the same clothes for 11 days?
Well, back then, I don't think they changed their clothes that much anyway. They didn't have very many clothes.
For 11 days.
That's a long
how
time.
Small closets used to be.
Same clothes. That seems kind of stinky.
Yeah.
It does.
It did mention...
I mean, I assume I assume she might have gotten to wash a little bit, but who knows?
Who knows?
You look at steerage on those boats, because she was on a boat at some point, and they're pretty rough.
It is. So it did say in the article that she did have some money on her to be able to buy food. She didn't use a
good.
lot of it, but she did. And she was, I won't say she was escorted, but the, let's see, the hand, where is his first name? Greg, thank you. I was just like, Greg Hand. Yeah, he did mention that a lot of the people that were not escorting, but helping her through all these stations and everything were making sure she was taken care of. So, yeah.
I don't think people would do that now.
No, I don't think there would be that care taken.
Although
well, maybe it depends on what country you're in and what
airlines.
part of the United States.
Yeah.
Now you can still ship chickens and chicks.
I have a story about that.
Oh, does it involve a snake?
No, it involves dogs and chickens.
Oh,
and a murder scene. Not a real murder scene, but my aunt and uncle live out in the country. One of my aunts and uncles, and one of their dogs got loose and ate the neighbor's chickens.
Oh, yeah, poor chickens.
I mean, they were country dogs. They ran around, but he, went up and had a snack, and she had to replace them. And I remember my cousin telling me this story. She's like, "Who knew you could buy chickens in the mail?"
Since 1918.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And the U.S. Postal Service is the only place that does that in the world.
I mean, I know in my many road trips, I have seen semi-trucks full of animals. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming they're being shipped somewhere. They have to be.
I don't know if they ship livestock. I just know chicks for sure.
Yeah. Well, I've seen chicks for sale at Rural King, which I thought was the cutest flipping thing ever.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, they have chickens.
Well, since this inadvertently is our Easter episode.
Yeah, I was about to say,
chicks and bunnies.
As a owner of a rabbit, please do not buy chicks or rabbits or ducklings as pets at Easter. I am the owner of a former Easter present, and yeah, just don't do it.
No.
And don't put rabbits in guinea pig crates either. The floors are not made for them.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I know so little about rabbit ownership.
Yeah, don't put them on wire mesh. So this is an aside here. So my first rabbit was named Ichiro, and she was from the Indianapolis Humane Society, and her previous owners, and we didn't know much about her, but her previous owners had put her in a guinea pig crate, which is fine for guinea pigs because their feet can go over the grating just fine, and the grating is small enough for their pellets to go through to keep their crates clean. But the meshes does not work with rabbit feet because rabbits have very long claw nails, actually, and you do have to trim them. So Ichiro, when she was very young, got her foot stuck in the mesh, and it twisted it permanently, disfiguring her left hind leg. So when her entire life, she actually just dragged this leg behind her. She couldn't hop or anything. So yeah, please don't adopt rabbits for Easter, and just talk to the local house rabbit society when you want to adopt them. They are also considered exotics by a lot of veterinarians. So you'll have to get a special veterinarian. If you're in Cincinnati, there are quite a few.
Interesting.
Didn't know that.
And that is my PSA about owning rabbits.
This week we have a hometown haunt.
Yay!
Who wants to read it? Do you want to read it?
Do you want me or Jen?
Jen
Jen looks like the child in class who's just like, bye. You can't see me. I'm sliding down now.
Do you want to read it, or do you want Kat to read it?
I can read it since
you can read it.
Read much. Let me get to it. From Chad.
Yeah, from Chad.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is a spooky story.
Okay. Damn it.
Will it freak her out on camera?
I don't know if it's quite that scary. I think being there, like the circumstances late at night and stuff, we'll let her read it and we'll see how.
Yeah.
I don't want to say
reaction.
No spoilers, right? No spoilers.
Okay. Ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Hold this up so it doesn't scratch. Okay, this is from Chad. There were a few over the years. One of the spookiest ones was as follows. We had just arrived back from a football road trip. It was around 3 a.m. and we were finishing up unpacking the equipment truck in the new football building. Other sports had been practicing while we were gone, so I had to go to the old equipment room in the dimly lit hallways of Jaeger Stadium to get team uniforms ready for their games the next day. I was by myself putting laundry away in field hockey and soccer equipment cubbies when I heard a raspy voice say, "Hey," as if someone was there trying to get my attention. We have night cleaning staff, but not on weekends. So I responded by just saying, "Hello?" When there was no answer, I walked into the hallway and the fluorescent light fixtures above where I heard the voice was blinking on and off and then went out entirely.
And we might have Chad on eventually because this is just one of many experiences that he had. And it
At
sounds
Jaeger
like
Stadium?
it sounds like there's something going on, and other people have said they've seen stuff. So this might be someplace interesting to do like a ghost hunting.
Yeah. We
Not ghost
haven't read
hunting,
this one
paranormal
online before, have we?
I said it. I pasted it, and we all read it. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know he told us this one too. I think during one of our illustrator lunches.
And then I pasted it.
Yeah. Okay.
And
That's where I know I knew this wasn't deja vu. We've done that episode already, but
it might be.
I was just
deja
like,
vu.
this is
I
a
mean,
really
are you
familiar
feeling-
story.
Are you feeling even more like remembering it? Like it's a vortex of remembering.
Oh, that
Yeah.
just makes my brain hurt.
This is our new show. Is topic is Inception.
Just makes me feel insecure about my memory, which does not
Oh.
make me feel confident about myself.
No, the older I get, the more forgetful I get. And I'm a little worried about it.
It's
But-
bad when you notice how much your memory is going and you're like, geez, 10 years ago, I would not have let this escape. And now it's just like a funnel.
I know. It's
But-
just falling out my ears.
If it makes you feel better, they say the reason why a lot of times your recall is less robust as when you're younger is you do less stuff, for one thing. I mean, every day you're adding more and more megabytes of memory to your brain, and so it
One would
takes
hope.
longer for it to recall.
Well, do you guys live inside your heads? I'm always talking to myself inside my head.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
Always.
when I'm doing things, I'm thinking about something else, and then I forget to grab my sister's Tupperware to take back to her on the way out to her house, and I do it 50 million times, even though I stare at it as I walk past it.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Like, people can be talking to me and I'll completely miss what they said and have to ask them to repeat it. It's not a hard of hearing thing. It's just a realization to not be concentrating on whatever I'm thinking about and focus on people outside of my head, because there's like a zillion things going on.
Yeah.
Like just management. I never knew I'd be in so much management mode all the time when I was a kid. So all I can say to my nieces and, well, I don't have any nephews, but nieces is just not because they're girls, but it's just like, hey, small children, learn management. That will get you far in life. It doesn't matter what you do. Just know management, like time management is important.
Yeah, I think people learn that.
Insanely important. Some people never learn it.
But I think this is a really interesting haunt. He had a couple other ones, and that's why we thought it might be interesting to have him on, because it sounds like there's definitely some sort of entity there. And I think that he also said like a similar situation like you described, where you tell an entity, and actually this all kind of ties together. The guy that we described in the Something Weird this week did not want to take the spirit home, and he said, "Don't come home with me." And he related in one of his, he was having trouble sleeping and he finally told them to leave him alone, and he hasn't had nightmares since about this.
Yeah. I also want to mention that if you hear a small child saying mama, that is my small child, not a ghost child haunting the podcast.
Oh, it would be cooler if you said it was a ghost child.
Yeah.
No, we get so many emails saying, at this time I heard mama dada. And I'm like, no, that's a very live child saying this.
Oh,
He's
well, it's
getting
almost
ready
his
for
bedtime,
bed.
right? Yeah. So what's he
Mhm.
reading tonight?
Let's see. Probably Llama Llama Red Pajama. It's his
That's a
absolute
popular one.
favorite. But we have been reading actually the children's book that you illustrated about the, I'm going to mess up this animal name, Peregrine?
Oh, pangolin.
Pangolin. Yeah.
Pangolin. Wow. Just watch cats slip on names left and right on this episode. It's like ice skating. I'm on one side, then I'm on the other, and then I'm crashing
Pangolin.
through a fence.
Well, I'm glad he likes the pangolin story. I think it's a cute story.
Yes, he likes that one. So, and then we also have a Fiona, the hippo story that was
Aw.
done for the Cincinnati Zoo. So
Do you have the one that Kevin Necessary illustrated?
we do not have that one. We have the other one.
The Cordry?
Yeah, Cordry, which
Mhm.
I keep wanting to read like it rhymes and it doesn't, and it drives me nuts because all the rest of his, not Cordry, but all the rest of my kids' books all rhyme.
Mhm.
And then Cordry's doesn't. Nothing against them, but it was just, I'm expecting rhyming now, and that did not happen.
That's
But I do
alleged-
like reading all the different animal voices. So
Aw. That's allegedly an editor's pet peeve is rhyme. Like
Really?
I think well, and this terrifies me as somebody that's, I don't want to say I'm a neophyte writer, but like one of my authors, the one that wrote Annie Jump Cannon, also wrote Little Red Bat, she's a master at poetry and meter and stuff. And I always feel really ignorant when I talk to her because she'll read a manuscript and say, oh, I really love the meter in this and all of and I'm like, meter?
Oh, yeah.
My brain doesn't work poetically. And if you know a lot about that. And so I think when editors say they don't like rhyme and poetry, what they mean is we don't like bad rhyme and poetry.
Right.
yeah,
And
you,
there's
you
a
gotta
lot
have
of
a beat to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of really dreadful poetry out there.
Yeah.
I
Like-
wonder if a lot of poets hear words musically.
I do wonder that.
Yeah.
So any poets that are in our audience, please send us feedback to, what is it, not haunted Hoosier Mail. Oh my goodness, I just forgot the name of our own hometown haunted mail at gmail.com and tell us, how do you visualize meter and rhyme?
And if you write a limerick about our show, maybe we'll put it to music.
Or do you see in
That
color?
sounds like a threat.
No, not see in color. Do you hear in color?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's an interesting.
That's a good question.
There are people that hear in color, and I just watched.
What is that? What's that word that describes that? Something I've heard.
Here in color?
No, people that like have a sensitized,
I know,
like,
there's a
color thing, and there's a word for
actual
it, and I can't remember what it's called.
term
I can't
for
either.
hearing in color. Okay, internet. It's synesthesia.
Yes, I knew there was a word for it. Do you?
Okay. No. I just what.
I think in cartoons.
Well, what made me think of it? I watched Daryl Hammond's documentary about his childhood, and how he said he would assign colors to each voice, each character.
Oh, interesting.
And so if one character's blue, he's just like, okay, this character's blue, and then he has voice.
I do that with my characters when I'm writing.
Yeah.
My characters all have different color combinations,
Mhm.
and it's an old animation trick. From what I understand, Disney uses it a lot, where wherever your character sits on alignment dictates what color scheme they're wearing. So it's a color theory that I used to teach at my workshops. So if you have a character that's prominently good or like lawful or neutral, they tend to wear a lot of blue. If they're neutral, they're wearing a lot of purples. And if they're evil, they'll either wear black, like dark reds, or you got lime green somewhere in there. Every Disney villain uses lime green somewhere.
Maleficent.
Man, that's such a cool color too. I mean,
yeah, it's such a good color,
I feel
and
like
also
we need to reclaim it.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. But yeah, it works really well with all those really dark backgrounds. So if you have a dark blue and dark blacks and dark purples, lime green is going to show up really well. So when I'm doing my character designs, I'm putting like with witches and sorcerers, every single one of them has a different character color set. And if you know how to read color theory, you know exactly where they fall and where they're going. When I was really young, the example I got was Aladdin, because that was the hot Disney movie out when I was a kid. So Genie, the character Genie, is all blue because he's all good. And then Aladdin is mostly blue with some purple. And then you got Abu, who is a maroon with a little red hat. And then you have Jafar, that's all reds and blacks. And then Jasmine is very obvious because she's blue the entire time until she gets magicked by Jafar, and then suddenly she's in a red outfit when she's pretending to be in love with him. And then Jafar as a genie, spoiler alert, is all red and black. So
Wow.
And then you have the Sultan, who's just pure white and blue and gold because he's a naive, cute character.
Interesting.
That's
I mean,
really
You can
fascinating.
buy
I
books
need.
on the color
I wanna-
palettes of like Pixar and stuff.
I
Yeah.
want to know more.
So that's just a really quick rundown of color theory and
Okay.
like
Oh, that book on
showing character
Pixar
development.
where they talk about like scene colors and stuff. There's a whole book about that and how they
And then
suss
like
that out.
with anime, you can do this with hair.
Mhm.
Hair and eyes get used a lot in anime. So in manga, in manhwa. So you can suss out where a character is going and what their life story is just by what kind of hair texture they have and what color it is and all
That's
that.
kind of probably an outgrowth of theater, isn't it? Thinking about like in
Yeah.
theater in Japan, but also like Greek theater where they wore the big masks, the drama masks, which have kind of extreme expressions.
Yeah, if you listen to some of the old animators from Disney, it's very much theater, mostly musical theater. So you have that influencing also Japanese anime and any Korean animation going on as well. So musical theater is what makes animation, modern animation.
That's what I always tell people that want to do like comic book art or fantasy and science fiction art, that it's kind of like opera, that it's like everything's bigger. You don't like just show somebody like in a tiny, like average pose. Everything's like flowing.
Everything is
wind
flamboyant.
And hair. And like if they could sing, they would be, it's like everything's very dramatic.
Yeah. And that's what musical theater is. It's just modern opera. So
it's all bigger.
If your emotions are too big to state, you sing it.
That's true.
So yeah.
No. Don't get me wrong. I like some musical theater. I'm not a huge fan of it. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. My theater kid is showing.
I'm fine.
I grew up on musicals.
Singing your emotions as long as there's some talking in between. Like it can't just all be sung. Like I'm walking to the grocery store and I'm singing a song. No,
isn't
you're
that
not.
an aria? Like, isn't that the form where you go from speech to singing? I think that's what it maybe is.
I have no idea.
Anyway, if you have input, fair listener, on what we're talking about, you can send that to hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com and feel free to educate us on the proper theater terms of musical theater or animation, or if any of those things are haunted, we would really love to hear it. We got a few haunted theater stories. We need to talk about that.
Well, I think we have talked about that in the past, that theaters seem to have a lot of hauntings. So, that once everybody's vaccinated and we're able to do some investigations, perhaps some of our listeners who are in theaters can maybe get us in to check these places out.
Yeah, definitely the Sorg Opera House would be a must too.
I really want to go there. Yeah. I also am not above to going to Broadway or musical theater shows. Just FYI.
No, those
I'm
are
open-minded. Yeah, I'm open-minded.
Well, maybe we can go to Sorg in filming. We haven't decided totally our promo for the comic. I don't know if we want to do exactly what we did last year. We'll be revealing our plans in the next couple episodes.
Clearly, we now need to do a musical.
Yes. Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities, the musical. No theater. I'm looking at you.
Yeah,
Jay, make it happen.
Jay, make it happen. Well, on that note, everyone, thank you for joining us for another wonderful episode of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities presents Hometown Haunts. I'm your host, Kat Klockow. Along with me is Christina Wald and Jen Kohler. And yeah, if you have ghost stories, you can send them to hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com, and we'll see you next week.
But don't send us your
Bye-bye.
children.
No, don't
No.
send us your children.
We don't want them.
I have enough as